Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You stand before the mirror. You see your reflection. But do you recognize it? The face staring back at you is dressed in expressions, painted with habits stitched together by years of expectation. You call it you. But deep down, you know it's a mask. This is the stranger in the mirror. The polite smile you wear when you're breaking inside. The nod of agreement when your soul screams, no. The practiced laugh you give to avoid silence. Every movement rehearsed. Every word is calculated. You think you are free, but you're only playing a role. Jung warned that the mask, the persona, is useful in society, but fatal to the soul when mistaken for the self. You wake up each day and play the character others expect. The obedient child, the reliable worker, the loyal friend. The performance continues, applauded on the outside, hollow on the inside. Life becomes an endless stage. You walk with invisible scripts handed down by parents, culture, and authority. Do well in school. Get the job. Find a partner. Build the image. You obey because you fear rejection. You comply because you crave belonging. You are moved by strings you cannot see, puppet cords of shame, fear, and duty. And in this play, your real self is banished backstage. The wild voice inside you is silenced, drowned under the chorus of should and must. You laugh when you're told to laugh. You bow when you're told to bow. You wear the mask so long you forget there was ever a face beneath it. But when the lights go out, when the applause fades, there is silence. And in that silence you feel it. A void, not emptiness, but an echo. The echo of someone locked away. This is the shadow. It waits in the corners of your dreams, in the whispers of anxiety, in the longing you cannot name. You avoid it with noise, with endless scrolling, with shallow love, with busyness. Because facing it would mean tearing away the mask, losing the safety of the stage. Yet Jung taught that what we run from is exactly what we must face. Silence is not your enemy. The shadow is not your doom. It is your doorway. The stranger in the mirror is not who you are. Beneath the mask, beyond the roles, behind the silence, your true self waits, and it waits for you to be brave enough to meet it. Remove the mask, face the silence, become whole. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. You build your life on false comforts. The job title that makes you feel important. The brand name on your clothes. The number of likes under your photo. Each becomes a thread you cling to, weaving an identity out of things that were never you. The paycheck defines your worth. The applause defines your value. The label defines your existence. But what happens when the company closes? What happens when the applause fades? Suddenly the ground beneath you shatters and you realize it was never solid ground. It was glass, thin, fragile, ready to break the moment life shifts. False comforts seduce you because they promise safety. You tell yourself, if I can hold on to this role, I'll know who I am. If I can earn this recognition, I'll be secure. But Jung warned that identity built on externals is not identity at all. It's a disguise. And sooner or later the disguise cracks. You've seen it. The man who loses his job and loses himself. The woman who builds her entire self-image around beauty and despairs when the mirror changes. The person who cannot survive without constant validation, because inside they are starving. This is not identity. This is a dependency. And dependency is always fragile. Then there is false love. The illusion that someone else will complete you, save you, or prove your worth. You think it's love, but often it's projection. You fall for the person who carries what you repressed. The confident partner when you feel insecure. the gentle one when you disown your tenderness. You mistake this reflection for destiny, but it's your shadow drawing you to itself. And the danger is this: the moment they withdraw their affection, your world collapses because you were never loving them. You were chasing the missing pieces of yourself. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Real love transforms. False love consumes. You've seen the difference. The toxic cycle where you lose your identity in another, begging for scraps of validation. Or the constant fear of abandonment because deep down you believe you're not enough. That isn't love. That's dependency wearing a romantic mask. And so the hollow center grows. You climb the ladder, earn the title, collect the possessions, even find the partner. Yet at night, when silence comes, something inside you whispers, "Is this it?" You thought achievement would silence the void. You thought relationships would erase loneliness. But after every victory, every embrace, the emptiness returns, because the illusion was never about love or comfort. It was about avoiding the truth. You don't know who you are without these masks, and when life finally tears them away, through job loss, betrayal, or heartbreak, you face the collapse. The mirror cracks, the illusion dies, and what remains is the terrifying, liberating question: if I am not these roles, not these comforts, not these attachments, then who am I? Strip away the illusion, face the hollow, begin again. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. You believe you are free. You believe your choices are your own. But look closer. Beneath every decision, behind every desire, an unseen puppeteer pulls the strings, and its name is your wound. The child who was shamed learns to fear judgment, and as an adult, avoids risk. The boy who was ignored grows into a man desperate for attention, mistaking validation for love. The girl who felt unsafe becomes a woman who clings to control, terrified of surrender. These wounds are silent architects. They shape your reactions before you ever think. You say yes when you mean no. You sabotage what you want most. You are convinced you are choosing, but the wound already chose for you, and you obey. The shadow hides in plain sight. You exile traits in yourself, then chase or despise them in others. You repress anger, then condemn the angry. You bury ambition, then envy the successful. You hide your vulnerability, then worship those who express it. What you reject within becomes a mirror outside, and every conflict, every obsession is a projection. That's why some people irritate you instantly. They reflect your unclaimed self, and that's why some attractions feel magnetic. The missing piece of you shines in them. The shadow is cunning. It shows up as the people you love, the rivals you hate, the stories you tell about others. But in truth, every judgment is a confession. And yet, most people live in the prison of avoidance. They keep busy so they don't feel the wound. They numb themselves with endless scrolling, shallow relationships, distractions that never end. But silence always returns, and in silence, the shadow whispers. The more you run, the louder it becomes. Jung warned, what you resist not only persists, it grows. By avoiding pain, you surrender to it. The wound writes your destiny in invisible ink, guiding your steps while you swear you're walking freely. So long as you deny it, the shadow remains your master. But the moment you face it, the prison door begins to open. The puppeteer drops the strings, and the self you have always been, not the wound, not the mask, not the projection, finally begins to awaken. Face the wound. Break the strings. Walk free. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you see the sky. Everything you built feels like it's collapsing at once. The job you relied on for identity disappears overnight. The partner you trusted betrays you in silence and action. The friends who promised loyalty vanish when you need them most. Life's foundations crack, and the floor beneath you gives way. You are not just shaken, you are unmade. Every routine, every comfort, every familiar face feels alien. The world becomes a storm, and you are tossed in it without anchor. This is the breaking point, the moment when illusions can no longer hold. You thought you were strong, but strength built on borrowed masks falters. The collapse is raw. You experience physical tension, nights of insomnia, moments when the chest tightens and the mind races with, "Why me?" You watch the carefully curated image of yourself fracture piece by piece. Loss amplifies every fear you have buried. Failure echoes in every memory. Betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. Not because it wounds your body, but because it exposes the emptiness you have avoided all your life. You feel naked, exposed, like a house stripped of walls, the wind passing through without mercy. And then comes the shattered mirror. You stare into yourself and see not the person you believed you were, but fragments, jagged and unrecognizable. Every habit, every relationship, every achievement you used to define yourself now seems hollow. You are forced to confront the truth. Your identity was never solid. It was glass, beautiful but fragile, and it shattered in your hands. The pain is not just loss, it is the death of illusion, the annihilation of all that was a lie. The reflection you once trusted mocks you. It shows what you hid, what you ignored, what you denied. In the dark night of the soul, you drift. There is no guidance, no voice of certainty. You are untethered, floating through a world that once made sense but now feels like chaos. Every past decision is a question mark, every memory a blade. You are stripped to the rawest form of self, forced to face the silence, the emptiness, the void. And yet, in this terrifying disintegration, something waits. Beneath the rubble of the false self, the authentic self stirs. You are lost, yes, but in this loss lies the seed of rebirth. Fall apart, feel the void, rise whole. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. You believed it was love. You invested your time, your energy, your heart, thinking that what you held in your hands was a treasure. But pause. Look closer. What fell apart was not love itself, but the illusion you had built around it. The relationship, the title, the approval. None of these were mirrors of your true self. They were security blankets, illusions of permanence that promised safety but delivered dependency. You clung to them as if they defined you, and when they vanished, you felt abandoned. But the truth is sharper. It was never love. It was possession. The admiration you received was never unconditional. The attention you cherished was never free. And the moment the illusion cracked, the weight of reality hit you like a storm. This loss is paradoxically a gift. In the wreckage of false attachment, there is space. Space for freedom, for clarity, for self-discovery. You realize that you do not need validation to breathe, you do not need approval to exist. Jung said that only when we confront what we deny within ourselves can we step into authenticity. By losing what was never yours, you shed what constrained you. The collapse that once felt like death becomes a doorway. The chains loosen, and the self that was buried beneath masks, expectations, and projections begins to emerge. And then, in the silence left behind, truth is born. The truth that your worth was never held in another's eyes. The truth that identity cannot be borrowed or imposed. The truth that the heart, when freed from illusions, finally has space to feel, to create, to be. You see yourself reflected, not in the other, not in the job, not in the praise, but in your own presence. And it is enough. It is more than enough. What you feared as loss becomes liberation. What you mistook for love becomes the lens through which you finally recognize the self you were always meant to meet. Release the illusion. Embrace the self. Find your truth. What you resist not only persists, it grows stronger. You have spent years running from anger, from shame, from fear, running from the parts of yourself that society taught you were unacceptable. But the shadow waits. It does not shout. It does not beg. It waits patiently in the corners of your mind, in the silence between your thoughts, in the choices you cannot explain. And now, at last, you turn toward it. You do not smile. You do not pretend. You face the darkness you have hidden, the wounds you have denied. This is courage, raw and unpolished. It is terrifying. Your heart pounds. Your body tenses. Every instinct tells you to retreat. But you do not. Because beyond fear lies freedom, and beyond avoidance lies power. Integration begins not with perfection, but with recognition. You admit the anger you denied, the envy you buried, the desire you called shameful. You recognize the patterns you cannot escape. The need for control, the compulsion to please, the secret self that lurks behind every polite smile. Jung said that the shadow contains both the potential for destruction and the seed of creativity. When you embrace it, you do not become weak, you become whole. Every flaw, every wound, every hidden desire becomes a tool, a teacher, a key to self-mastery. You stop fighting yourself and start listening. You stop running and start moving with intention. What once haunted you now guides you. What once diminished you now strengthens you. Sovereignty emerges slowly, silently but unmistakably. You are no longer dictated by past hurts, by projections, by the invisible puppeteer of fear. You choose consciously. You act with awareness. You speak with honesty. You live with integrity. The storm still exists. Life is never calm. But now you are the anchor, the captain of your own vessel, the authority in your own mind. The shadow that once threatened to consume you now walks beside you as a companion, a teacher, a reminder. That power lies not in dominance over others, but in mastery over yourself. Face the shadow. Claim your wholeness. Walk sovereign. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. The storm has passed. The chaos that once dictated every thought, every action, every fear has quieted. You feel it in your chest. A subtle shift, a calm that is almost alien after years of inner turmoil. This is the quiet power of knowing yourself. No longer are you tossed by external opinions, by the betrayals of others, by the illusions you once mistook for life. You move through the world with a steady rhythm, like a river carving its path through stone, persistent yet patient. Your clarity is not loud. It does not demand attention, but it is unshakable, and it radiates from every choice you make. Where once you sought validation, now you feel sufficiency. Where once panic ruled, now awareness governs. Peace is not absence of challenge. It is mastery over reaction. The journey, however, does not end here. Individuation is not a finish line, it is a continuous unfolding. Each day presents new shadows, new temptations, new layers of self to confront. You will stumble. You will encounter illusions that feel familiar. But now, you walk with tools forged in fire, self-awareness, courage, honesty. You observe the patterns that once controlled you and choose differently. You honor the lessons of the past without being trapped by them. Life becomes a dialogue with yourself rather than a battle with the world. Every step, Every pause, every reflection is part of the ongoing journey of becoming whole. And then comes the moment when fragments merge. The shadows, the broken pieces, the denied desires, the hidden fears. They are not gone, but they are embraced. They are no longer chains, but threads weaving the fabric of your being. You stand, no longer a reflection of expectation, no longer a prisoner of past pain, no longer fractured by illusion. You rise as the real self, complete, aware, sovereign. The light is not blinding, it is steady, patient, illuminating every corner of your inner landscape. You are whole, you are free, you are home by yourself. Embrace the calm, continue the journey, rise whole,